10 o'clock hour. I'd like to welcome you all to our regular meeting of the Board of Public Works. We do have a quorum present. I do see Council members Podeski and Ostrom on the call, as well as Randy Turtenwald, Andrea Train, and myself. So all 5 members are present. Let's go ahead and get into our agenda. The first item up is the approval of the minutes of our last meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve our minutes. Moved by Podeski. Is there a second? Seconded by Turtenwald. Any discussion or questions on the minutes? All right. All those in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye or thumbs up. Any opposed, say no or thumbs down. I saw a unanimous vote in favor of the motion. The minutes are approved. We move on then to our agenda items. Item number 1, which is 21-0189. It's a construction contract change orders for the week. There were a number of those, along with the updated tally for the lacrosse center. I would entertain a motion to approve the change orders. Moved by Ostrom, seconded by Train. Any discussion or questions on the change orders this week? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye or thumbs up. Any opposed, say no or thumbs down. I saw a unanimous vote in favor of the motion. The change orders for the week are approved. We move on then to item number 2, which is 21-0171. It's the bidder's proof of responsibility. Randy, do we have any this week? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we have 3. August Winter and Sons Incorporated from Appleton in the amount of $90 million for HVAC, wastewater treatment, and various other things. CD Smith out of Fond du Lac for $75 million. General construction, concrete pavement, sidewalk construction, and Rice Lake Construction Group out of Deerwood, Minnesota for $75 million. Heavy civil construction facilities. I believe all 3 of these are vying for the wastewater treatment plant, which is estimated around $55 million. Motion to approve all 3.
Is there a second? Seconded by Podeski. So we have a motion by Turtenwald, seconded by Podeski to approve the bidder's proof of responsibility. And just as a gentle reminder, if you're not speaking, please mute your phone or your laptop so that we can cut down on the background noise. All right, we do have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye or thumbs up. Any opposed, say no or thumbs down. I saw a unanimous vote in favor of the motion. That motion is approved. The bidder's proof are adopted for this week. Next, we move into item number 3, which is 21-0188. It's the approval of payment list of right-of-way acquisitions for South Avenue. And there were attachments to our agenda, which hopefully everybody had a chance to review. And I'd entertain a motion to approve the payment request. Moved by Ostrom. Is there a second? Seconded by Turtenwald. Any discussion or questions on the payments for this week? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye or thumbs up. Any opposed, say no or thumbs down. I saw a unanimous vote in favor of the motion. That item is adopted. All right, we move on. Item number 4, which is 21-0117. It's a discussion regarding parking on the 1600 block of Ramsey Place. There was a request along with some information that was shared on our agenda. Perhaps what I could do here is ask the staff to just give us a brief recap of what's being requested, and then we'll see if we have folks that wish to speak on this. Go ahead, Stephanie.
We got the request from JR Trucking Company. They had noticed a heavy amount of trucks parking on Ramsey Place, making it difficult to maneuver on the narrow street and also to see visibility through the intersection. So he reached out to the business owners that are near the intersection, and neither one got back to them. So we decided to bring it to the board to look at next steps. JR, I believe, is on the call, so I would welcome his input as well.
All right, Stephanie, thank you. Is the recommendation for a no parking area, or are we to that point yet?
No parking would make sense close to the intersection. However, we'd be willing to look at 2-hour parking to limit the amount of long-term parking with the trucks.
Okay. All right, thank you.
This is
Patrick
Patrick Strupp Trucking. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, hold on
Can you
one
hear us?
second, sir. Yeah, we can hear
Okay.
you. Hold on one second. Let me get to Councilmember Podesky's question, and then we'll get to you. Go ahead, Gary.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for taking me first, because I did want to ask Jason who the 2 businesses were that were near him who didn't respond. I'm just curious, and I'm just curious if he would just give us an idea of why he would like to have this done, other than the parking. Thank you.
All right, Gary. Anyone else with a question? Otherwise, let's get to our folks that want to talk on this. So from Strupp Trucking, go ahead. If you didn't mind just introducing yourself.
This is Patrick Strupp with Strupp Trucking. On Ramsey Place, the 2 businesses are Reinhardt and Crown Cork and Seal are the 2 businesses. And on Ramsey Place, Crown Cork and Seal pulls their trailers up to be unloaded, and they come in tarped. They're flatbeds that have tarps all the way across. So the guys have to pull the tarps off, put them out in the street, and then they roll them up, blocking the entire street. Well, for a while, Reinhardt had 2 semi-trailers parked on the other side of the street that they stored pallets in, and they have moved them at this point. But it gets to be really congested on that area from our driveway down to the intersection. And it's kind of it's a hazard with the guys out there rolling up their tarps from, I think it's rail that does most of the hauling, but they're there with 10 to 20 loads a day doing this. And that's why we have requested that they put no parking on the, I'll call it the north side. It's either north or westish side of the street there, so that we don't have trailers there when they're doing this. I guess that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Patrick as to the request? Is there anyone else here, either on the phone or virtually here at the meeting, wishing to speak on this item or to offer any information or ask questions? Anyone else? All right, I am not hearing or seeing anyone with a hand raised. What's the wishes of the body here? What would we like to do? Are we ready to move forward with something? Do we want to try to reach out directly to Reinhardt and Crown Cork and Seal, or what are the next steps?
I'd be willing to make the motion to approve Strupp Trucking request. It just this is one of those situations where if we approve this, then you're going to have the other 2 businesses, as always, say they weren't aware of it. But if Strupp Trucking reached out to them and they didn't respond, then I'm willing to go ahead and make the motion to approve this.
All right, is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Turtenwald. Motion by Podesky, seconded by Turtenwald to approve the request for the no parking. I do see that Matt Gallagher has his hand raised. Go ahead, Matt.
Mayor, In case the point was missed, when Stephanie was talking, I just wanted to let the board know it is engineering's policy to send notices of these appointments to all the properties. So even though those businesses may not have replied to Strupp, the city did give them notice to attend this meeting. That's the practice we followed for several years, is that if there's a request that's not regarding the street that's adjacent to a property, we always notify all of the people to give them a chance here. So I think moving forward with the no parking is what staff is recommending.
All right, thank you, Matt. Any other discussion on the motion, which is to recommend approval of the no parking request? Anyone else? All right, I am not hearing or seeing anyone else wishing to speak. The motion is to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye or thumbs up. Any opposed, say no or thumbs down. That motion carries by unanimous vote. That request is approved. So thank you, Patrick, for being here this morning. All right, we move on.
Thank you all.
Our next item, you bet. Our next item is the item number 5, 21-0128. It's the capital equipment for 2022. Both the summary report and the detailed report were attached to the agenda. This year we went and met with all of the department heads and the departments with their requests prior to getting us to this point, because we felt like we could answer and address a lot of the questions and get a better understanding. And we did just that. I do have to just applaud our departments as well as finance, especially for putting together, I think, a true 5-year look at what our capital equipment needs are and to come up with a plan to really address those and get us caught up. There was some information I hope you saw related to the enterprise leasing program that we're doing now. So again, our staff is showing some great creativity. All the departments working with finance and purchasing to look at ways that we can, again, just save the bottom line and get our equipment and vehicles updated. So what I would like to do today, rather than in the past, I know we've had presentations by each department. Unless the board is really concerned about that, and I would I'll double check with Valerie to make sure I'm not doing something here I'm not supposed to be doing. But I believe what we wanted to do is just see if the board had any specific questions from any of the departments on their request. You can see on the summary information that we have a total of $6,960,765 for 2022. Of that is $3,564,596 in new borrowing. And then you could also see, obviously, the next 4 years after 2022 laid out for the various departments and what those needs are. Again, I think our staff within the departments and within finance have done a good job of going through this and really coming up with at least a good proposal from the departments. Typically what happens after this, of course, is that the board will get their questions addressed today and then refer this to a future meeting with the recommendations for funding and recommendations for approval. And then that ultimately will end up going to the Common Council for action. So with that, I would perhaps maybe just turn it over to Valerie and see if she has any additional comments or things she wants to share this morning. I'm looking around the screen and I believe we have representatives from just about every department within the capital equipment. So if the board members do have a question, I'm sure we can get at those today. So Valerie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. The mayor covered a lot of the items that we would normally cover during this meeting. I just kind of wanted to point out on our summary page on the summary report, there were 2 reports attached to the item on the agenda. One is all of the detailed pages that the departments submit, and we work off of those during our meetings. We ask questions during our departmental meetings with them. So we didn't used to always really show that detail report, but that provides a lot of additional information for our citizens, for the council members, for this board as well. Instead of just seeing the summary, it's got some justifications in there as to why departments are seeking these kinds of equipment. But there's a summary page on page 1 of the summary document. And as the mayor said, we have about 6.9 million in total new equipment requests, with 3.5 million of that being new borrowing. And that would be on a promissory note that we would pay off over the next 10 years. So there's that. And when you look at the 5-year program that's laid out here, you can see in years 1, 2, and 3 of the 5-year plan, it's pretty solid. But as you get out to year 5, you can see that the numbers really drop pretty significantly in terms of the dollar amounts. So that's what we've been trying to work towards as we go through the equipment process, to really get a solid 5-year plan. So when you see such a significant drop in year 5, that's really maybe something that's like, yeah, I put something out there because I kind of think I know what we might want, but then what we're not seeing is, let's just pretend we had to go out and borrow for all 5 years at once. Would this be realistic, and would this capture everything? So maybe not. So that's just something that we keep working towards, and we'll keep asking those questions of departments so that we don't suddenly get into year 3 of this plan and say, oh, oops, we forgot $1 million truck out there, or 2 $500,000 trucks. So we want to have a very realistic plan that we can plan for with our future borrowing. I also just wanted to point out, and as the mayor said, we're really trying to get our capital equipment as well as our rolling stock really on a good replacement cycle. So what's proposed for 2022 are the amounts that we've said. For 2021, there was 2.6 million of new borrowing. And looking back at 2020, there was 3.9 million of new borrowing. So I think that goes to show that we have a pretty solid, consistent plan on a replacement basis, so that we don't suddenly come up on something that needs very significant repairs that we haven't planned for because we don't have it in a replacement cycle. So I don't know that I had anything else to point out. We do have on our flow chart of timeline schedule to refer the list to council on April 1st. So we have the rest of this month, as well as the month of March, to go through any iterations or changes related to questions that you might have. And I think that's all I have to say right now, unless anybody has any particular questions for me or else for the departments.
Thank you, Valerie. Any questions for Valerie before we kick it off here? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone or hearing anyone. First hand raised is Bernie. Go ahead, Bernie.
Thanks, Mayor. I have a question for Valerie. On page 15 and 16, the leased vehicles, I was reading the kind of that paragraph, and it says for the general fund, that'll be levied out of debt service fund. And then for us, the enterprise funds, we need to put that in the operating budget for 2022. So I know in 2021, we had budgeted it in the equipment fund for replacement, and we just used that money. So that's kind of a change for 2022, just confirming that we aren't actually budgeted for leasing yet. We have to do that in the 2022 operating budget.
So let me just make sure, when you say 2021, that we were paying for that out of the equipment fund? Is that what you were saying? But we weren't using utility funds to pay for the utility lease payments?
In 2021, we had just left our equipment budget for all the replacement, full cost of replacement of anything we're going to replace. And then that money was, my understanding, was used to pay for the leases in 2021. Where now we're not budgeting anywhere in our equipment budget for replacement. It says that we're supposed to budget for leasing now in the operating budget, which we can. I just want to confirm that I need to do that, and that there's an account set up in the operating budget for that.
Okay, let me just make sure I'm understanding your question. So the question isn't whether or not the utility funds will be paying for their own lease payments. It's just where the core funding source landed. Was it over where you pushed money over to the equipment fund, or you pushed money over to your operating budget to fund it out of your utility funds? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I'm confirming
Okay.
that the page 15 and 16 are really kind of more informational rather than an actual budget. And then we actually need to budget the money in the operating budget, that this is just an informational page.
This is an information.
Budgeted here and taken care of?
Yep, the informational page, that is an informational page, and those dollar amounts are not included in the summary page up front here. So whether you want to transfer utility funds out of the utility reserve or out of to budget for it out of your rate model, and where we point it to, but we had said we would use the capital outlay lines in the operating budget for the utility funds. If that's something that you are interested in doing something different, you can certainly talk to Dan and I about that. We can structure it a little bit differently. This is just what we were thinking when we put this informational page together.
Oh, that should work fine.
Okay, great.
That.
Okay, yes.
Other questions? And I would open it up to the departments if there are any additional questions from the department level, or if there's any particular piece of equipment or information that you want the board to know about today, highlighting your plan within the department. Anyone with a question or a comment at the department level?
I would be remiss if I didn't just point out the La Crosse Police Department's request.
Go ahead, Chief.
I think the one and only thing that the police department is requesting, are we doing a capital? I'm sorry, I just came in late because I had a meeting with my chief. Are we doing equipment?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Today's equipment.
So the only piece of equipment that the police department is requesting is replacement of ballistic vests, body armor, bulletproof vests, whatever you want to call them. I've had some preliminary discussions with Valerie regarding why we put that into this thing. It's not like they are an optional item. It's not like, do we buy a bulletproof vest or a wood chipper or anything like that. Obviously, we all know the value of the body armor and the bulletproof vest, saving the life of our officer just a couple years ago. So that is our only request in the budget, is to provide those vests, which are mandated equipment that have to be replaced every 5 years.
Okay, thank you, Assistant Chief Abraham. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Valerie, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. And I'll just kind of follow up on what Rob just stated, that we definitely want to have those in here as a replacement. But in speaking with the police department, these have more of a 5-year life. So to roll those into 10-year borrowing isn't something that we'll want to do. So we may pursue, it'll likely be borrowing, or we'll just straight levy for it off of this plan. But to borrow 10-year money for 5-year assets, that's not something that we're going to want to do. So we'll either pursue a different line of financing for these, whether it's just a direct bank loan or a state trust fund loan, but something that matches up with the life of the asset. So we're also trying to keep an eye on that kind of thing in this equipment plan, which is maybe something we didn't used to do in the past. We would put it in here, we borrow 10-year money. Some of these things have a shorter life than 10 years. For example, some of our rolling stock and our vehicles, they just, we are on a faster replacement cycle than every 10 years. So we're trying to align any borrowing with the life of the asset. So just wanted to point that out to everybody.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Any others? All right. Well, what I would suggest is that we refer this then for 30 days, which would put us to mid-March. And we will then come back to this board with a recommended capital equipment budget for 2022. It'll include much of the same format that you see here, along with any changes or anything that happens between now and then. And then typically what happens is this board will take action on that budget, and then it'll get referred and moved in then to the Common Council cycle, so that it'll go to F&P and ultimately to the council for final action and be part of that capital budget that will get acted on this summer. So if there's no objections, I would entertain a motion to refer this for 30 days. Councilmember Ostrom, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I'd like to make that motion, Mayor. Thank you.
I saw a second by Podesky. Again, to refer this for 30 days puts us at the middle of March. We'll come back with the recommended budget and go from there. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye or thumbs up. Any opposed, say no or thumbs down. I saw a unanimous vote in favor of the motion to move this then for 30 days, and we'll come back with the recommendations. I want to thank all the departments, especially in finance, for putting together this budget to this point. So thank you, everybody. All right, we move on. Next up is item number 6, which is 21-0173. It's a large item and mattress collection update, a recycle coach application, city facilities collection extension with Harders, and information about an electronics and scrap metal event. So the agreement for the city facilities and buildings was attached. I would turn it over to Shar Wagner, our recycling and solid waste coordinator, to maybe give us a little bit of a recap and some information, and we'll go from there. So Shar, good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mayor. Thank you. Large item collection is going to be held May 17th through May 28th. This year, we had 2 proposals, one from Harders and one from Hilltopper. And Harders won the bid with large item costs at $26,400 and box spring and mattress costs at $19,400. This is an agreement for the 2021, 22, and 23 years. Gary did not put on there any kind of additional cost for cost of living or anything, so that should be the cost for the 3 years. Any questions on that before we move on?
Any questions from the board? And what I'm hoping, Shar, is that maybe for next week, if you've got the actual proposal, that could be attached to the agenda for us to have that before the meeting.
Absolutely.
Does that work? Okay.
Yeah, I can do that. They were due Saturday, so I opened them up on Friday when they came in, and so we could have the numbers here, but definitely I can do that.
Okay,
then,
so we'll put that item on then for next Monday for action. So go ahead with the rest.
Perfect. The city facilities agreement, Harders asked that we do an extension through 2021 with an 8% increase. I did talk to the mayor earlier, or after Harders presented it to me, and just never got it on the board. So Gary and I did talk Friday, I believe it was, and for January he just did a 1.5% increase, and then for the rest of the year it would be an 8% increase for all city facilities. That's all I got on that one.
I have a question, Shar. Are we then thinking that we would do a request for proposals for 2022 and beyond for the city facilities, or how did you want to handle that?
I know Gary did mention something about increasing it or extending it for 7 years, but I'll let the board decide if they want to do that or if we want to do a request for proposal. I know that the garbage contract, I believe, was extended 7 or 10 years also last year.
Okay, any questions from the board on the contract for city facilities and city buildings? So Shar, is the proposal then for what you're asking the board to take action on for an increase for this year for 2021, and then we would submit a longer term RFP for a multi-year award after that, or I guess help us understand what we want to do here today.
Okay. So we want to extend the agreement for till the end of 2021 with an 8% increase.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the board? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion on that. Moved by Ostrom. Is there a second to that request? Seconded by Podeski. Councilmember Ostrom's got his hand raised, so go ahead, Phil.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering, Shar, what in dollars, what 8% is equivalent to?
About $800.
Okay. Any other questions? So the motion that we have on the floor here is to extend the contract for solid waste and recycling for the city facilities and buildings through 2021. And then again, the presumption is we would send out a RFP for a multi-year service. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye or thumbs up. Any opposed, say no or thumbs down. Okay, I saw a unanimous vote in favor of that motion, so that contract is extended through this year with that rate increase. Back to you, Shar, for those additional items.
Not a problem. I have two items that are just kind of informational. March 13th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at City Hall parking lot with the permission of Parks Department. We are going to have a scrap metal recycling drop-off for each of citizens. I will be attending and will be checking IDs because once that's advertised, it will be we'll be getting some floaters from other communities, I'm sure. So I will be there so we can check IDs to make sure that they are City of La Crosse residents. And then the other is we have an app for recycling. It's launching March 1st. It's called Recycle Coach. And what that is it's a web and mobile communication platform to help people recycle better with digital tools. We're planning on to see lower levels of contamination and an increased recycling, proper recycling and disposal of other items throughout that people get rid of. Some of the standout features are it has a calendar reminder to remind you when your trash and recycling are. It's got a search engine where if you have an appliance or an electronic or something else, you can do a search and it'll tell you the proper place that it should go. And then also it'll see what our biggest questions are and do education on an interactive campaign on some of those items.
Great. Sounds very helpful. Do we have any comments or questions from the board? Is there anything else that you want to share with us this morning, Shar? So we've got dates for large item pickup. We will have a contract next week with Harders for a 3-year service related to that, and we've extended the contract for city facilities through 2021. So any other action items for this morning?
Not that I have.
All right. Thank you for that. Andrea has her hand up. Go ahead, Andrea.
So is the scrap metal pickup event in March the same? Is that also an electronics event?
Electronics and scrap metal, yes.
Okay.
All right. Great, and they'll be advertising, I'm sure, to get the word out for folks to be able to come drop off their items. So appreciate all the work on that. I know the past several events held in City Hall have been very successful, so we'll look forward to that as well. All right, thank you, Char. Next up, we have item number 7, which is 21-0184. It's the award of a biosolids hauler contract for 2021. And I would maybe ask the staff if Bernie or Jared are on the line here to give us just a brief recap of that. Jared, go ahead. Good morning.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. As you know, about a year ago, we came to the Board of Public Works with our biosolids saga of how we were full of biosolids and no place to go. At that time, we put a request for quotes out to contractors that we felt could fulfill this work with limited luck. So we had one contractor, A1 Advanced Pumping, that quoted us on other methods for reuse of biosolids, and then land applying biosolids for the city of La Crosse. So we awarded both other methods and land application for biosolids to A1 Advanced Pumping. A1 Advanced Pumping performed very well for us in 2020, hauled almost 14 million gallons of liquid biosolids out of the facility, using other methods for disposal and land application for beneficial reuse of biosolids. So it ended up being a successful year. Of course, it was a drier year, which is in our favor always. So at this time, we've brought it back to the board to do an extension on the same contract. So there would be no increase in cost, to be the same price. And we're looking for a 1-year renewal or extension of that same contract. I wanted to come back to the board a little bit sooner, but I wanted to make sure that we had our land application report done with DNR, which the deadline was January 31st. So everything was successful there. The numbers all look good. Their performance looked good. So we're coming back to the board asking to renew those same contracts for 2021.
Thank you, Jared. Any questions from the board? How about a motion then to renew or to extend that contract to A1 Advanced Pumping for the biosolids management? Moved by Ostrom. Is there a second? Seconded by Podesky. Any discussion or questions on the motion or the extension of the biosolids land spreading and other methods with A1 Advanced Pumping? Okay, I'm not hearing or seeing anyone with a question. All those in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye or thumbs up. Any opposed, say no or thumbs down. I saw a unanimous vote in favor of the motion. That item is approved, and thank you, Jared, for being here this morning.
Thank you.
All right, we move on to item number 8, which is 21-0185. It's a request to dispute the charges for snow shoveling at 1024 Denton Street. There were a number of photos in the invoice, the letter, and then I believe everybody received a copy of the email from the property owner on Friday. So I would ask David Reinhardt if he had any additional information or any updates for us this morning, and then otherwise we'll get into it here. David, did you have any additional info?
No, I'm just here to answer questions. If you'd like me to give you a summary, I'd be more than happy to do so.
Mayor, I think you are muted.
Sorry about that. So David, why don't you go ahead with just a quick summary, and then we've got a couple of hands raised. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Snow that fell between December 23rd and December 30th at this particular address was shoveled on January 8th. Our sidewalk map that we used to verify lineal footage was 46 feet. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Podesky, you get your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dave, I have a question. I think I know the answer. Now, the sidewalks, this is handled by inspection now, I'm pretty sure, because I know I've had some complaints from people, and I had given you a phone call a while back on a couple of sidewalks, which I had complaints on, because myself, if I go around and see sidewalks, I'm personally not going to call. If I get a complaint, it's different than I feel I have to call. But was this address complaint driven? And the only times that are we sending out our crews, is it just on a complaint driven contract? And then I have another question after you follow up.
No, this was not a complaint driven sidewalk shoveling. When we do receive complaints, they are forwarded to our cleanup crew. However, the cleanup crew actually does go around, view sidewalks that need to be shoveled, and shovel them accordingly.
Okay, I guess I went today with the cold weather. I didn't get up to go. I was going to go up by Strupp Trucking and check out that situation. And then with the cold weather, I didn't. This morning, I was able to get out, and I went by the property in question here. And I guess what has always troubled me with these is, and I understand, we have to do it because I walk the dogs. I know there's people in wheelchairs. But what troubles me, as I drove around town today, I see so many sidewalks that I know haven't been shoveled in over a month. So what really bothers me is if we're going to ding people, and there's people within 2 blocks that haven't shoveled those sidewalks. So I just really need consistency if I'm going to be consistent in how I vote with this. And be honest, right now, I'm still trying to decide how I'm going to vote on this. I don't want the city to lose money, but I feel bad for the property owner if he's getting tagged, and we have properties within a couple of blocks that haven't been shoveled in over a month. And I just find these situations really, really hard to do. And I know that the fact I bring this stuff up, that people on city staff are going to be glad when I'm off council in a few months. But I just would just got to hear an answer to that stuff, Dave. I apologize.
Thanks, Councilmember Podesky. I understand your concern, and we try to be as consistent as possible here in our department. And if you want to give us those addresses, we'll be more than happy to forward them on to the cleanup crew. However, regardless if one person gets done or not, the code is still the same. And I guess I don't really have a good answer for you. Our snow shoveling crew should be shoveling everybody that they can get to in a timely manner. However, you have to also remember there's 17,000 properties here in the city, and they're a crew of 1 crew, and they do what they can to clear all those sidewalks. Especially the last last week, they haven't been out as much because it's been so cold. So I will be more than happy to give them a call and remind them that they need to be consistent on this. However, if the snow needs to be shoveled on the sidewalk for the ordinance, it has to be done. So.
No, I understand that, Dave, and I will not give out addresses. Like I said, I have called you on a few, but that was complaint driven, where people call me, and I'm not going to ignore when people call me. But I'm not going to go around and be the sidewalk police. I'm just not going to do that to people. But I do understand. I'm not. If you guys think I'm accusing you, please don't. I'm just saying that it's frustrating for me to vote on these when I see other sidewalks. But I do understand we only have so much staff and so much time. So please don't think that I'm attacking anybody, Dave.
All right, thank you. I do see that the property owner is here. Good morning, sir. Go ahead and feel free to share anything you would like with the board here this morning. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Kevitz and the Public Works Committee members for taking the time to listen to my case. I came by Friday night and stayed the night, and so I did the measurement on Saturday mornings. Let me see if I can share my picture, if it would let me. So if you look at this picture, so I did a measurement of the cement block. Each block is 6 feet long, and there are only 5 of them have snow cover. So at the most, even the last one is not quite the whole block, but it's only at the most 30 feet with snow cover. So I just want to point that out. That's just something that I discovered that is outside of the email that I sent you. And I guess other point is, we did not just abandon the property. I think I provided the evidence that we do come by, as 1 to 2 weeks. If I try to follow the ordinance, then it would mean I have to, be there every 2-3 days, which is not practical. And if I try to heed the CDC recommendation, you are not supposed to visit your second home unless it's, necessary or whatever. So I'm just hoping that, I'm not just trying to abandon the property. We do what we can to clear the snow. So on the December 28th, we came by and clear the snow. It's just that a day or two later, if there's additional snow, wind blow, or what have you, that is somewhat unforeseen, because we did check the weather condition closely, watch the news, and if we didn't see that, doesn't mean the snow didn't happen. It's just that we probably didn't notice that if there's additional snow coming or whatever. So I certainly hope that, whatever you can do to reduce the bill, it will be greatly appreciated, and certainly willing to answer any question that you may have. Thanks for your considerations.
Thank you. Any questions from the board members? Councilmember Podesky, go ahead.
There you go. Thank you, Your Honor. And I don't want to mispronounce your last name. Is it Nag?
Ing Ang.
Ing Ang. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I guess my question is, I read the email and stuff, and I understand your predicament, but weren't there any neighbors that you could talk to about keeping this clear? It's
yes.
just it's just hard.
In the past, we did talk to the neighbor on our left. In fact, when I was there Friday and then Saturday morning, when I clear my snow, I cleared their snow as well. I don't want to say we have unspoken rules, they help out whenever they can. And when I'm on vacation or whatever in the past, we would let them know. It's just that we were thinking that asking them to cover for us for the entire winter while we could still come by might be a little too much to, you know what I mean? You just don't want to warn out the favor from somebody. So, but I understand, it's just that back in December and January, it was a very mild winter. As some of you might notice, there was practically lack of snow. So you do not, or at least we don't feel like asking the favor at the time. So.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not a real big sidewalk. That's why, I was hoping you would say you would talk to your neighbor and then they just forgot or something. But the problem is, I'll tell you, for somebody who gets out and walks the dog and stuff and has had past physical problems with my legs, if when you come to sidewalks that aren't cleared and corners and stuff, it's very hard as you get a little bit older and stuff to get around and move around and stuff. So I feel bad for your situation, but I mean, it's hard for us. We have to keep the sidewalks clear, I guess. So.
Yep, and again, totally agree. So we totally agree with that. You know, my wife used to work for Gunderson. From there is a 4 or 5 blocks walk. And hate to bring this up, you know, like you were saying, she walked through many properties on her way that have snow cover much longer than we do. You know, we did, and you know, there are times weeks they didn't clear that. So, and she has to walk around that, and we totally get that. It's just given that the situation that we are in. Hopefully this is the last winter that we have to deal with this. So we have make plan, have contacted Dawn Reinhardt. Will hopefully figure something out, you know, soon.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or discussion on this item? What we have before us here is a dispute to the charges for snow shoveling at 1024 Denton Street. So are we ready for a motion, or do we have other questions or discussion here this morning? All right, I'm not hearing or seeing anyone, so I would put it on the board. What's the motion here for the board?
Oh, boy. Well, I know everybody's struggling with this one. It breaks my heart, but I'm going to make the motion to deny, just because I understand where Mr. Reinhardt's coming from. We have to keep them clear. I understand where the homeowner's coming from. It's hard when you're out of town, but unfortunately, then you just have to bite the bullet and ask a neighbor to please cover for you. And down the road, then maybe somebody would play it forward for that other neighbor. But like I said, I usually try and find any wiggle room and things like this, but I'm just going to shut up and make the motion to deny.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Ostrom. So motion by Podesky, seconded by Ostrom to deny the appeal to the charges. Any other discussion on the motion? Sir, go ahead.
I just want to point out that the invoice was for 46 feet and the snow cover was only about 30 feet. So.
All right, thank you for that. Any changes or adjustments to the motion there for the invoicing? Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I guess part of my motion would be for Dave then to do whatever he has, do the math and knock it from 46 down to 30 feet, unless he has a picture to show that it was the full 46 feet. If Dave could answer that, I guess before we make the motion, I'm sorry to make this such a tangled up mess, but could you answer that, what the homeowner just said, please?
Go ahead, David.
Thank you. I guess this being the first year, I'm not familiar with how wide a sidewalk stone is. So I don't know if Randy could answer that, or I can go out there and actually measure it myself if that's what needs to happen.
Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, the sidewalks are poured 6 foot by 6 foot stones. So when the gentleman put the picture up, I counted, and yeah, it's not 46. Those stones would have been 6 foot long, and it looked like 5 of them, which would be like 30 feet. Maybe 36 if there was 6, but I only counted 5. And they're probably charging for the frontage, not the amount of snow shoveled, because it's probably got 46 foot. Because a lot of times property owners on both ends that are shoveling will shovel a little into the neighbor's yard or sidewalk. At least at my house they do. So it could be less than his frontage. So I think it's probably only 30 feet.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
thank you, Randy.
Mr. Mayor, I would change my motion then to apply charges to 30, knock the charges down to 30 feet.
Okay, is that acceptable to the seconder? Okay. All right, so I see a thumbs up. So the revised motion then is to deny the appeal for the disputing the charges at 1024 Denton Street, but to amend the linear foot to 30 lineal feet. Does everyone understand that motion? All right, the motion is to deny the appeal with that adjustment in the footage. All those in favor signify by saying aye or thumbs up. Any opposed, say no or thumbs down. All right, I saw a unanimous motion to deny the appeal, but to make that adjustment to correct it to the 30 feet. So thank you for joining us this morning, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we move on to the next item number 9, which is 21-0187. It's approval to hire Strand to update the citywide water quality SLAM model and stormwater management plan. And I would turn it over to staff to give us just a brief recap of what's being requested here.
Thanks, Mayor. This is Bernie. This is funded in our operating budget, and I've asked Jason Grzecki, our stormwater coordinator, to explain the study. We have selected Strand out of the RFPs that we received.
Good morning, Jason. Go ahead.
For having me. So basically, a couple years ago, we were audited by the DNR, the city's MS4 permit was, and there was a couple areas of deficiency that were pointed out. And one of them was that our prior model had been done in 2008. The MS4 permit has a minimum threshold for TSS reduction. The previous model showed us to be at approximately 15% reduction, and we need to get to 20. Since 2008, the city has put in a great deal of green infrastructure, and we are relatively confident that we are over that 20% compliance threshold now. However, we need the new model and the new plan to demonstrate that.
All right, thank you. Questions for Jason or for staff on what's being proposed here? All right, are we ready for a motion to approve Strand for the update to the SLAM model? I see a motion by Podeski, seconded by Turtenwald, was it? Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye or thumbs up. Any opposed, say no or thumbs down. All right, I saw a unanimous vote in favor of the motion. That motion is recommended for approval for the selection of Strand for the SLAM model. That does get us to the end of our agenda. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Podeski, seconded by Train. All those in favor of adjourning, show the thumbs up. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your Monday. Stay warm.
Thank you all.